All right, we are live. Good evening, everyone, in person and online. My name is Seisha. I am the social media manager here at Charis Books and Charis Circle. And tonight, on our 51st birthday, we are so excited to welcome Lolá Ákínmádé for a discussion of Bitter Honey, a story about a mother and daughter divided by long buried secrets, struggling to understand each other as they forge their own paths. Tonight, Lola will be in conversation with Marcie L. Thomas, who is the founder of Brown Girl Collective and the BGC Book Club, which are two platforms that celebrate the brilliance, beauty, and boldness of Black women. Through the BGC Book Club, she highlights works by Black women authors, and with her Live Well Sisters interview series, she amplifies voices that inspire holistic well being. As a curator, connector, and cultural storyteller, Marcie creates spaces where Black women feel seen, celebrated, and empowered. Thank you for being our conversation partner tonight. And I'm so excited to introduce Lola, who we are so excited to be celebrating tonight. Lolá Ákínmádé is a Nigerian American award winning travel writer, speaker, photographer, and author of the international bestseller In Every Mirror She's Black and Everything Is Not Enough. She is based in Stockholm. Before I pass the mic on to Marcie to start our conversation, a quick couple housekeeping things. I wanted to remind the audience in person and online that we'll be doing a short Q&A towards the end. So if you have any questions or comments or love for our authors, if you're in person, just keep them in your head and I'll pass the mic along towards the end. And if you're online, you can drop your questions in the chat box and I will voice your questions. Also, a quick reminder that buying your book from Charis allows us to keep putting on events like this. If you are online, you can purchase Bitter Honey by clicking that teal button right below our lovely authors. And if you're in person, Abeo is selling copies of all of Lola's books up front. Thank you. On to Marcie.
All right. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to what I know is going to be a great conversation with my friend Lola. So, we have actually had a chance to talk a couple of times virtually while she was in Sweden. So, this is an extra special treat to be able to do it live and in person. So, welcome to ATL.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Marcie. It's just a huge honor to be here. Thank you all so much.
Yes, yes. So, of course, you have written these beautiful books over the last several years, and I was doing a little show and tell earlier. People may not have been able to see. In Every Mirror She's Black, and of course, Everything Is Not Enough. So, these are her first two books, but this is your third book in the world. So, yeah. Well, first of all, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, this is the first week of the book being out in the world, even though we talked about it a little bit earlier. I should say in the world in the U.S.
In the U.S.
So I'm excited about that. So, Bitter Honey, for those who may not have had a chance to read it or listen to it yet, give us just a little synopsis of what it's about, and then we can just get into some questions about the themes.
Absolutely. So, Bitter Honey is my third novel.
Yes.
And it follows the lives of a mother and a daughter. It's about friends and lovers. It's about forgiveness and secrets. And most importantly, it's about if you get derailed in life, how do you pick yourself back up again? All right.
Yes.
And so it spans 4 decades, starts in the 70s, also follows the daughter in the 2000s, and mother and daughter, their lives are mirrored, throughout the book. And it also shows how we can inadvertently pass generational trauma on to the next generations.
Yes, and it's a very compelling story. So I look forward to seeing more of what people hear or have to say about it once they've had a chance to read it. But in this book, something that you've done a little bit differently, because in the last two books, they were really more like contemporary fiction. Yes. But in this one, you did something a little different by having it span over 40 years. So there's a little bit of historical fiction. So what was it that led you to want to tell a story in that way this time?
I mean, my other two books, like you said, are more contemporary, and it's about Black women moving to the Nordics, to Sweden in the modern day, and what their lives are like, right? And this one, I wanted to show, okay, what if they moved in the 70s or even 60s and our society changed then, our society then versus now, but also show other narratives beyond, for example, maybe the refugee narrative or something else. Like, what was it like to move in the 70s as an academic, into university, and where people are assimilating versus integrating. Those are two different things, right? And wanted to show that, as well as talk about the narrative of somebody that's actually born in Sweden but is brown, right? So she's mixed, she's black and white, and also what our own experience is like. So I wanted to cover kind of a broad range of topics that were also, important.
Yes.
Important.
Yes.
So.
But by you starting the book in the 1970s, 1978 to be exact, there are a lot of things that are happening in the world at that time, especially for our lead character, our mother, who is Nancy. So was it the idea of the story or the idea of wanting to talk about the time that came first?
I think it was the idea of, so the idea for the story was actually like a piece, like a nugget in Every Mirror She's Black, right? So even though Bitter Honey is very different, in Every Mirror She's Black, there's a character called Tobias, right? So in Swedish, it's called Tobias. In the US, it's Tobias.
Right.
Yeah, but it's Tobias. And Tobias is on a date, and he's on a date with a lady called Kemi. And so on the date, is telling Kemi that, my mom, moved to Sweden in the 70s as a student to Stockholm University, where she met, my dad, who was a professor.
Right.
And so right then, and this book came out in 2021, and I wrote it in 2018. So it's been a while.
Okay.
But when he said that, I'm like, I'm liking this. Let me put this aside because I think there's a lot to explore.
Absolutely.
And then with that in mind, 40 years, well, not 40 years, but like 4 decades, right? So many historical events. And I think that was my favorite part of writing the book is, how can I weave in all these historical events accurately, while the characters are just moving fictionally through it. So every historical event, anything that happened there was actually true to the moment. So whether they are playing a football game and it's Sweden versus Paraguay and this player scored this, all of that is in the book. And our fictional character is just in there. Or whether it's the Nobel Prize dinner, the exact menu, the exact wine that was being drunk, the exact choir that was playing, what the queen was wearing, what the king was wearing, all of that. So I wanted to bring, so that was the fun part, is how can I bring all this history in there so that people can be like, let me go Google it.
Right, because people are going to look at it.
Yeah, and then they Google and they're like, wow. So that was fun.
Yes, I can imagine that was fun. And, just to think of, like you said, the process of going and looking stuff up and researching and making sure that you are telling an accurate story. Because, there are those fact checkers that are going to go back and make sure that you told the right thing. So I love that you added that type of detail to what is a compelling story on its own. Even if you didn't do that, it would be a compelling story. But also just the fact that even now in 2025, there's a whole lot of stuff going on. We're not talking about the stuff that's going on, right? But there's a whole lot of stuff going on, but we're still living our lives in the midst of it. People are being born, dying, falling in love, getting married, finding jobs, losing jobs. All these things are happening in the context of what's happening around us. So I love that you did that for that specific time. So let's talk about Nancy, because she is our mother character, our older character in the book. But she's quite a dynamic young woman when we first meet her. So kind of tell us a little bit about who she is and how she ends up in Sweden.
No, absolutely. So Nancy, when we first meet Nancy in the book, so the book is told in like a dual timeline narrative. It's Tina, who's the daughter, and then Nancy is the mom. And when we meet Nancy in her 20s, just kind of bright-eyed, quite naive, she won a scholarship to come to Stockholm University to study international relations and political science. And the running joke, maybe not joke, but the running thing was that, she was going to be Gambia's first female president. She was on the track to really showing the world her brilliance, right? And so she comes in bright-eyed. She's staying with her aunt, who is married to a Swedish man, who is, I think, 15 years older.
Right.
You know, the aunt. And so she's staying with them. And then she meets this amazing young guy called Malik, who is also from Gambia. And Malik happens to be the son of the Gambian ambassador in Sweden. So she just had a really lovely kind of bubble of privilege she was moving around until a certain somebody popped that bubble.
Isn't that what life is like? It's good. Like all of a sudden, like, you burst my bubble. Like,
exactly. Exactly.
That is not good.
Exactly. So,
but yes, it's just interesting because she is this young Black girl from Gambia, and she has these big dreams, and her family believes in that dream, so they help her to take the steps to actually be able to go there, and she's able to be with her aunt, but be with her around her aunt and her family, but not really around her family because she's developing her own relationships and going to school and stuff like that. But as you mentioned, and this isn't in getting anything away really, because it's in the first couple pages of the book,
like page 2.
Yeah, page 2.
Well, yeah, like everything page 2.
We see the person that bursts her bubble.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Ultimately bursts her bubble, and that's Lars.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about him because he was something else.
Yes. So, and it's been so much fun, like reading feedback, because that character has triggered something in the readers,
Oh, yeah.
So Lars is a professor, an anthropology professor. In his he was 40 when we meet him, so he's 20 years older than Nancy. He spent his time in Gambia and Senegal. He speaks 2 indigenous languages fluently. So he speaks Mandinka and Wolof.
Right.
And that was how he was able to essentially get closer to Nancy, because this is somebody that speaks a language fluently in a place where she's still trying to figure things out and doesn't know a lot of people. And that professor, what I was trying to show with him was I was trying to create a kind of textbook narcissist on the page, right? So somebody where you might think, okay, he seems nice, right? But the world revolves around him, and he has a sort of kind of colonizing love, and entitlement to Nancy, just because he knows her language. So that is a very complex character I wanted to create.
Yes, and we had a chance to talk about it before, but it's something to think about that person that when you first meet them, you think, oh wow, this is great. They can speak my language. Right now, be like, oh, they know all the dances, the boots on the ground.
Exactly. Like, oh, invite him to the cookout.
Exactly. So you want to welcome them in, and you're looking at them, and in some ways, he was helpful.
Yes.
But then he also was hurtful.
Yes.
And so it's just to think about that.
Yeah. And I think, I figured out kind of what was triggering readers with Lars.
Okay.
So not so much that he got into the relationship with Nancy, and you find all this out on page 2, right? Because he meets his daughter and says all this, but it's the fact that he was benefiting off of Nancy.
Right.
And that is, where white men benefit of the bodies of Black women in society. And I think that was what was really super triggering.
Yes.
For a lot of,
Yeah, I could agree with that. I mean, we know of too many instances where that happened. Where I'm thinking Sarah Bartman, and just so many other ways that that has happened historically, and to. Well, of course, don't say too much, but just to take advantage, and the fact she's 20 years younger, all of these things. So he's this great, he's this great professor. He's brilliant. He speaks her language. He's all these things, and then he just manages to, take advantage of her along the way.
Absolutely.
So that's just interesting to see that and see how that plays out, and. Again, getting derailed because we already know she has a daughter.
Yes,
he's her baby daddy.
Exactly. Exactly.
To see the the derailment of things that Nancy wanted to do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I keep saying that it's not any spoilers, and I think I'll read a little bit later.
Yes, please do.
Because he shows up on page 2. right? Because the daughter is
Yes.
getting ready to go on stage, Tina, and then it just shows up in a dressing room and is like, I am your father.
She also has an ego because she's 20 and on stage, you know. So if I had created, you know, a character that was kind of weak, then she wouldn't be believable as a pop star, right? Singing in front of millions. So she has to have a little bit of an ego, like a little bit of a diva thing in there. And what I wanted to show with Tina is she, because she didn't have a dad around and she felt her mom was indifferent to her, so she was always trying to look for love in the wrong places. You know, and that also shows how trauma can be passed. Like if the mom is saying, don't be with this person or don't be with that because I'm trying to protect you. But at the same time, she's still trying to figure out, you know, what's right for her. And so what happens, and I can share a little bit of kind of Tina's act a little bit without giving too much is when we meet Tina, she's in the dressing room and her father shows up. She's about to go on stage to sing at a competition called Melody Festival. So Melody Festival is how Sweden picks the singer that represents them at Eurovision. I don't know if you've heard of Eurovision, but it's this big, it's the world's #1 singing competition, right? And all the countries send their representative. And so she's about to go on stage, and the dad comes in, and so just kind of throws her off balance. And so she goes on stage, and the song she's supposed to sing, like a pop ballad, she actually sings it and with no like almost a cappella with nothing. And she's marvelous in it. And the audience is first confused what's going on. But then she wins, right? And that's where everything starts, where when she confronts her mom, she confronts her mom in a public setting, which leads to a scandal. You know, which then just essentially destroys Tina's career, right? And this is all within like the first time.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's really just you know, you have to read the book because there's so much in it.
There is a lot.
There's so much
There's a lot.
and all this is going on, and Tina's boyfriend is a guy called Sebastian that plays on the national team of Sweden, you know, and so there are just many characters and there's a lot of it.
There is definitely a lot in the book. Yes. It's just, you know, just thinking of that. Can you imagine getting ready to like something that could be like the biggest move of your career, and then somebody walks in and gives you a bombshell, and they look alike. So she immediately looks at me like, right, this man, this man, I thought was dead. Like, what the
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that is the thing that just destroys Nancy.
Yes.
Right? Is that every day I have to look at this girl.
Right.
That looks exactly like this man who is the cause of all my pain.
Right.
So and the daughter feels that it's like, I wasn't asked to be born. Why do you hate me? You love my brother, but you know.
Right.
So there's a lot of
There is definitely a lot of that mother-daughter dynamic that we see in the book, and you know, just something to consider because it could be something. Number one, I know we talked about it before. We said, "Hey, we act like Mama didn't have a life."
Exactly.
So, Mama had a life, you know. Mama.
You know, and that's also one of the things I wanted to say is that I wanted to write Nancy as just a lady in her 20s because we never think about our mothers or our mother figures at that age where they were like wearing hot pants, you know, and crop tops and you know, chasing boys, right? Sex, yes, they did. Like we don't, it's like you don't think about that, right? But I wanted to show just you know them also navigating life and us hopefully giving grace now. So our parents sometimes don't have like what they acting sweet. Maybe they did go through something, and okay, I don't know what they went through, but maybe give them a bit of grace, and then hopefully they can, you know, overcome whatever they went through. So like with Nancy, I just wanted to capture that moment, you know, of what's our moms going to look like at that age.
Right, absolutely. And you know, it's a mother and a daughter who are like the lead characters, right? But there are other characters. We already mentioned Tobias. Yes. Say the way you say it. You know, we got introduced to him in another book. So he also shows up in this one as well. And it speaks to the thing of how a mother can have a son, and treat a son one way. Yes. And have a daughter and treat a daughter a different way. So that happens. So, of course, there are other reasons besides just, the male and female aspect. But that happens a lot too, where, the same child can have a different parent depending on the way that parent relates to that particular child.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Tobias is such a strong character in the book, even though you never get into his mindset. You can get a sense of who he is based on how the mom is interacting with him, how he's interacting with his younger sister. He has a bit of a dominating energy with his younger sister because he had to kind of step into that a bit of a father role. But yeah, he's quite and is featured prominently in these two books. Mm-hmm. So just so you know, that book totally standalone, but the Tobias in these two books is, and then you understand why he acts the way he is. But also the character Malik. Yes. So the character Malik is this kind of really good-looking man. He's a student as well. Comes from privilege, has this little afro, his bell bottoms, And I said I wanted to like photos of my dad from that era, kind of inspired, how I could, show my leg where it's, they've got like maybe the V-neck shirts button down this, with the bell bottoms, leaning next to a Transam, or like those, there's not just photos of the dad, wearing the tinted glasses, right? And so I wanted to show just that era of just, black men taking up space, coming with that kind of swagger, and also showing that that kind of swagger can also be threatening to those in power, and they will want to squash it. Yes. And so, for example, with Lars, right? Mm-hmm. And also wanted to show, like, the way you're talking about mom, like, parents having different relationships with the kids. Lars, even though he loves Gambia and everything, he likes Nancy, but doesn't like Malik. And Malik always says, I see it in his eyes the way he looks at me. Mm-hmm. There is something about it, he just doesn't like me. Mm-hmm. Even though he says he loves everything about, that I represent. Mm-hmm. And so I also wanted to show that Nancy, and also because readers were asking, okay, now why did Nancy warm up to the professor, right? Well, it was also because of Malik, right? Because the professor didn't want a boyfriend, so she had to be teacher's pet, to make sure the boyfriend doesn't get right. And the fact that he didn't like him, not only because he was, young and strapping and all these wonderful things, but he also was a prince. And he always done one. He had what he wanted because Nancy wanted it. Yeah, but that's just something, just thinking about it, how there are people in the world that will manipulate so many different things to get what they want for their own purposes. Yes. And not thinking about, the person that they are dealing with. They just like, this is what I want, and what by any means necessary, I'm going to get what I want, even if it's, ultimately doing things that cause harm. Exactly. And that's why people don't like Lars, because he's good for that. And throughout the book. And like you said, there is a quote from the American poet Emily Dickinson that appears a lot in the book, where is that art wants what it wants, so it doesn't care, right? Mm-hmm. So I put that a lot in the book. So it gets up to that point, like, if the heart wants this, it doesn't care. And which is like, it wants this, then therefore, doesn't care. Yeah. So would you mind sharing something from the book? Yeah, I can read. I'll let you take mine. I'm gonna read exactly when Tina meets Lars, right? And I'll show you exactly where it is. So it's this is one. Tina. See, this is next page. Right. So Tina right now is in a dressing room behind the scenes waiting to go on stage. You know, it's filled with flowers. People send flowers in, her boyfriend, all of that. She's smelling flowers. So Tina reaches to put the flower back in place when she hears a light rap on her door. Her assistant, Lotta, pokes her head in with a look of resignation. Tina's heart skips. What's wrong? Tina asks. The last thing she needs right now is that look Lotta is giving her. I'm sorry. Lotta begins to draft an apology. I told him this was your night, but I couldn't stop him. Stop who? Lotta visibly swallows. He says he's your father. He's got VIP access backstage. I checked his pass. Tina freezes, her nails digging into her armrest. What? The words barely leave her. Lotta falls silent. She lets the door open to reveal the man behind her, and Tina peers into eyes matching hers for the first time in her life. Her breath catches. I told him not to, Lotta continues in her defense. The man steps around the assistant and into the room. Tina's lips tighten as her amber glare blazes past Lotta to fully take him in. She watches emotions play across his face, his lips trembling, his brows arched upward. All that fiery air, the cause of her pain, the tons of fire crotch throughout high school. It couldn't be, could it? Tina, he starts to say, taking a step forward, a bouquet of lavender-colored lilies in hand. Tina presses her lips tightly as tears begin to pour. No, her father was dead. Her father is dead. Uncle Leif and her mother told them so. All these years. He can't be the man standing in front of her with matching freckles, honey-colored gaze, copper-hued hair, a middle-aged male version of herself. Tina slowly rises to her feet, anger swiftly replacing her initial shock. Her bedazzled nails sinking deeper into her armrest. Who are you? She asks, her gaze cutting through him. Who the fuck are you? She sees tears well up behind his eyes. He gasps audibly, his mouth hanging open, before introducing himself. Lars. Seeing you in person, his voice shaky, feels so unreal. How much you look like me. He starts to sob. I wanted so much to be there for you, but she made me promise, he cries on, his hands dead gripping his flowers. She made me promise never to contact you. Ooh, Frida, the man says. He gasps once more and places a hand over his mouth to compose himself before continuing. Frida made me promise. Who the hell is Frida? Tina demands. They lock eyes before he exhales. My wife. The room descends into silence so heavy, Tina feels her ears pop. All these years, the man pokes through his tears. I've dreamed of meeting you. I've loved you and your brother from... My father is dead, Tina snaps. He died in Gambia. Her voice cracks. He died in... Nancy had to tell you that, he says. To protect you from what I couldn't give you and Tobias. He pauses. How is Nancy? Her mother and brother's names sound foul on the stranger's tongue. How dare you? Tina whispers. How dare you? Please, Tina, he cries. I just want to give this to you. He holds the bouquet of lilies forward. To celebrate you, to let you know just how proud I am of you. His voice catches. I know that song is about me. Bloody hell, Becca, she curses. What in the hell? Get out of here. Tina's tone deepens. Get the fuck out of here. I know your song is about me, he continues. You are so selfish. Tina cries. So selfish. She chokes on her sobs. On my biggest night. Tina, Lotta chimes in. Fuck you too, Lotta. Tina points a gemstone fingernail at her. Get out of here, both of you. Once Lotta and the stranger leave, Tina falls back into her chair and ruins her mascara. Yeah, that is so good. If that was the second chapter is the second chapter is where she and her brother come to that's the thing. Yes. I mean, it's just the whole thing. Secrets and eyes, right? Right. Well, I saw your eyes
coming up and you mentioned Frida. So yeah, you eager to learn. Yes. So this book it definitely takes you on a ride, a roller coaster ride. The way that you wrote it is, it's two different people who are, two different stories that we see, but it also goes, the timelines shift from each chapter, so you kind of see. So, say if something happens in 2006, then you see the flashback to what was leading up to that. So, just from the perspective of putting the book together, was it challenging to do that?
So I think it actually came out organically, right? Because as I think what was challenging was trying to line up all events. So I knew she had to be 20 around this, and I knew when we meet Tobias is around here. So I was shifting like the whole 4 decades. I'm like, well, the World Cup is here, but then if I count, then this doesn't, okay, I need to shift, I'm like, okay, wait a minute, the Prime Minister died in there. So if he died there, she just said, okay, but so that was what I was doing. So that was the challenging part. Trying just moving so that everything aligned, so that everything was like, for example, in the book there's a coup that happens in attempted coup in Gambia. I had to line it up so that it's when Prince Charles and his married lady, Diana Spencer, because that's when it happened. That was when the president was like, they had to line everything up. So that was what was actually more challenging. And then as I'm writing, and I know the characters, when things come out, for example, I'm like, oh, this will make sense. Then you just swap. Like, okay, I see where this character is leading me. So let me just swap and make this so that it connects this way, so that maybe something Nancy did in the past, then Tina is dealing with it in the future, so just swap it.
Wow. So yeah, it's
a lot of. I'm really proud of this book. I put a lot of work in it. It's a lot of work in this.
Because it's just all of the drama. Looking at the mother and the daughter, who, even though they aren't necessarily the closest, there's so many things in their lives that are parallel. It's like, and so that speaks to the thing of traumatic events, I guess.
Absolutely, and I think I personally love messy characters. All my books are just messy characters. I mean, mess. There is something that Tina says in the book is, which one is worse? A mother who loves you but is indifferent, or a deadbeat dad who acknowledges you? Like, which one is better, right? So there's always, I never give you any answers or like any, this is bad, this is right. It's just, I'm showing people in the full human condition as messy as they are, to make decisions.
It's definitely, making decisions, and sometimes they're not good decisions. It's terrible. And reading a book, there are times where, Nancy irritated me, because it's like, Nancy, this person's already shown you who they are, but leave them the first. Exactly,
And it's also like, I love that the way I put it, the readers can almost foreshadow it. Don't do it, but you can see it.
Right.
It's almost like watching a horror movie. Don't open that door. Things there.
Right.
But so that's
exactly. It's about her and Nancy and her daughter, same thing. But one of the things also that, we have these strong women, characters, and there are men that are like in their lives and all of that, floating in and out and back and forth, like, happens. But one of the things I found interesting is that they don't necessarily have a lot of like women in their lives.
Yes, yeah,
and that's different, because a lot of us really got our girlfriends or or whoever who's going to kind of like be in your ear, but we don't see that. But you did that for a particular reason.
Yes, absolutely. It's also to show that if you don't have grounding forces, if you don't create community, it's very easy to get swayed. I mean, if Nancy had some really strong girlfriends, they're going to be like, is that what you're crying over? Is that the thing? Because we will put, we'll ground each other, right? So, but she didn't really have that. There was just making the other little bubble. And I mimicked the same thing with Tina and Sebastian in our little bubble. So I was just mirroring, that if you didn't have those grounding muscles, so yeah, but that was my choice. And then Tina was trying to make friends with Kasha, in the book. And so you could see that she's looking for those kinds of like female friendships as well. But yeah.
Yeah, that is something, just to think about. And who's around you and having that support system.
Yes.
But one of the, I know, overarching themes that you are talking about is like what happens when your life gets derailed.
Yeah.
And how do you bounce back?
Yeah. Well, absolutely. And I think with Nancy, our life gets so derailed that the readers are mad at Lars. Like really, really.
Yes, it should be.
Yeah, they're like Lars, you're not gonna see it. You should. Because of the things like that, she just, I don't want to give it away, but when you read the book, you see how she came from this to where she ended up, which is the story of many immigrants that go abroad with qualifications, with bright eyes, everything, and then get forced to be in the margins of society, right? Doing the jobs that they never ever dreamt they would be doing, right? So I wanted to show that. And, none of the stories in the books mirror my life, but the one thing that did kind of mirror is because while writing this book, I did go through a divorce. And when you get married, you don't go into it thinking you're going to get divorced, right? So in a sense, your life gets off track, So how do you then regroup, when life changes and life takes you a different path and dreams get slowed down and the things you thought you were going to do, you can't do. How do you still say, you know what, I'm grateful. I've got these amazing, beautiful pieces. I'm going to dust them off and create something still beautiful. I was talking to one of my good friends who's also a travel writer. She knows I hate being put into boxes. Right. I just don't like. I don't like being stereotyped. I mean, I work as a travel writer, I'm a travel photographer in a very white male dominated field, going to places on assignment like Greenland and Mongolia. Like, I just don't like being in boxes, right? But then she says, but what if life does really put you in a box and outside of your control? Right? What do you do then? She said, what you do is then you just bring out your little box. That's it. So this is what, life has given you. So find the beauty, the joy in your box. Make it beautiful. Make it like a metaphoric box, right? Make it yours. Find self-care moments, even if it's gardening, have your little pot on the balcony, even if you don't have a garden. So that was what she was trying to tell me, and that's kind of what I brought into this whole. That's what I learned myself. Is saying, you know what, you can still find so much beauty in just the most simple, mundane things, so you can keep that perspective. So yes.
Well, I was checking on time. Are there any questions that anyone has?
Yeah.
I'm gonna bring in a mic just so for something.
So I think you briefly touched on this, but what was the inspiration behind the title? Because when I first saw the title a few weeks ago, I'm like, bitter honey. To me, that almost is like a contradiction because really honey is sweet. Yes, it's called bitter honey. So yes. Tell us about that.
Absolutely. So the original title was actually called The Deepest Well, right? The Deepest Well, and it was named after a Swedish proverb. I'll say it in Swedish and then translate it. So it says, den djupaste brunnen kan också tömmas. So the deepest well can also be drained. And the deepest wells of emotion in society are lacking. We just have incredible strength, but we also can be drained. And we need to be taken care of They need to be treated with tenderness, with care. And so the title was called The Vessel because of kind of Nancy's story. But then we took it to the publisher and we thought about it, and they were like, well, we like it, but it feels very thriller, mystery, horror-ish, like it's not the right title for like a historical kind of / contemporary fiction. So we went back, brainstormed, and they said, okay, how about Bitter Honey? Something so sweet, Professor Lars. That's really sweet, sounds bitter, you know. And honey is the color of the eyes, the dot on the professor's eyes, but also that's something that could look so beautiful and nice, and it was like, because you read it and the guy is speaking to Nancy in a language throughout the book. I mean, the book is filled with Mandinka well phrases like translated, but that's then becomes something so kind of callous and yeah. Extractive and like so you should read it. I think yes. And if you say you have more questions, yes. Okay. I want to let other people go first. I can yes.
I'm gonna give you the
I'm really looking forward to reading it. I read a fair amount of books set in Sweden, and you know, this one feels very different because you know it's from from a Black African perspective. I just wonder what it's like, you know, writing from those perspectives in a country like Sweden. And I'm assuming living in Sweden.
Absolutely. Yeah. And all these books, they center the Black experience. So to give you some perspective, even though these are my novels, I've written other books as well, travel books and culture books. One of my books on Swedish culture is in about 16 other languages except Swedish. All of my books are none of them is translated in Swedish. No, yeah. So I think but they keep selling out in Sweden the English, so people are reading it, right? So I think it's something that's there is a layer of gatekeeping because the people, like, you know, Swedes, they find the books, they love it, they're like, oh my God, this is different. We never get to see this perspective. But the issue is the gatekeeping, the Swedish public, that's really they're the ones trying to limit what gets published. And so they bring in a lot of other international authors that write about the same immigrant experience in their countries, and they translate it to Swedish as they see what's happening there. But I'm writing about the same thing at home. And I think that's a little bit, it's like looking in the mirror. And I say it's like telling somebody you've got spinach in your teeth, and they break the mirror instead of taking out the spinach, right? So that's what's going on. So there is like a blue ocean of literature that's needed. Most of the literature coming out of Sweden is either Swedish noir or, you know, like kind of the dark thrillerish thing, or Frederick Backman. Like those are the two, you know. So it's everybody else underneath. But but there is we need more stories of that centers Black and brown people in the lives. Because there are many of us. This book, In Every Mirror She's Black, before we were able to get this published, we had over 70 rejections, not just in Sweden, but just in the UK and the US. And we just stopped counting because why do you want to be a glutton for punishment? And even my friends are like, 70, are there that many publishers? but what was making it difficult, especially on the UK side, was they just did not want me to center Black people in Nordics, because the Nordics is the last bastion of whiteness, and they just idolize the Nordics and Scandinavians. And so for me to put, they were like, no, we don't want that image. So it was difficult, you know, and that was just one of many kind of reasons. But yeah, I just keep writing, you know, and there's so many people that read it, and I get so many letters, not just from Black and brown men, but like even white dudes saying, "I'm an Irish guy in Sweden. Thank you for." You know, picking up the experience, you know, and I'm like, okay. And so So yeah, so that's the reaction, is that when people read it, they really like it. It's the publishing industry that's keeping it from actually being translated into the and they're like, well, it's a small market, we're not sure, blah, blah, blah. But I think it's just more the themes, they just raw and real, and really too real. The only, like, there was a white Swedish journalist that reviewed it when she's black. That was the only review, like in a Swedish, just look that, and he said, it's clear that all the things she was writing about are real and they're in society, and she's writing it with a lot of nuance. And what I love most is that the most important character to me is Johan. So this is a book that the three main characters are three black women. Johan. But he said the most important character to him was Johan, which is a white Swedish guy. Because I wrote him with empathy and I didn't make him a villain. So what that told me is representation matters, right? Because this dude took a book about three black women and found himself. Like, he went through the pages and was like, so now imagine us, decades of not seeing yourself in media or books or represented, right? Like, it's just imagine that years of not seeing. So he looked into this book and found himself in the book, right? So yeah, so I'll keep writing a lot about, the Nordics. I mean, I'm writing a new book that has nothing to do with the Nordics, but I think it's important, and I think this is also inspiring people to write more. There is like a romance, more set in the Nordics. I want more contemporary, and there are a few, when people write it, but I think we need just more. I think it's important because I think we know about the diaspora in the UK, the diaspora in the US, the diaspora in the Nordics is still quite opaque. So these books are, making more visible. Do we have any other questions?
Any more questions?
Yes.
So out of these three books, which one is your favorite? Like, which one takes you the most?
Oh my God. I mean, they're all very different. I would say 11 Lashes Black was my debut. So this was the book that's really, and I'll tell you kind of the journeys of this book, because this one ended up being shown on New York Times Square. There was a Good Morning America Buzz Book Peak, so they got that out. So they had that out of school. Lots of great reviews and people talking about it because it was different. And it was talking about three different black women that end up in Sweden for three different reasons. One is a Nigerian American marketing executive, right? The other is like Black American but with Jamaican roots, flight attendant, former model. And then the third one is a refugee from Somalia, and they are all tied to Johan, right? So Johan is a uber wealthy, 1% wealthy guy who runs a marketing firm that gets into trouble. So he has to go recruit Kemi because she's the best in the US to help save his company. On the flight over is where he meets the model flight attendant and then chases her relentlessly. And then the refugee is at an asylum center waiting for her papers. And he's family is a benefactor to that. He doesn't remember, he just knows, oh, okay, we sent checks on the competition. But he does that, and then she also ends up as a janitor in his company, right? So in Every Mirror She's Black is when I start giving these black women space to be messy. Everything is not enough. Is they took that mess and ran with it. And so this one got an NAACP nomination for outstanding fiction. So that's big. and there was Jeanette McCurdy, Book Club Pink, and some other things. And then Bitter Honey is my personal favorite in the sense of the scope. So the scope is that because it's for decades and just all the events and all the things it touches. But yeah, I love the universe of this book. So, but if you read this, I'll say these two. This is the first one, and this is the sequel. So you read them like this. This one is totally standalone.
Right. And I just love, what you've been doing. Just because it introduced a whole new world to me. That's something I would never. I mean, I know Black people are angry. Well, I'm just to be able to see, yes,
and absolutely. And I also wanted to actually show you one, which is if you could, you said as orange bag. So just yeah. So that is the Johan I've been talking about. So his name is Yoni. That's his nickname, Johan. Readers kept asking, like, this guy is one of the most complicated white dudes on page we've ever seen. Can you tell us his story? I'm like, I am not writing a full book on a white dude. so what I will do is give you a novella. I guess I'm not going to do it. Those last page, another thing like that voices. But so what I did was actually created this novella in a week actually. And this gives you an idea of why he is the way he is in his books. So you can check that out there.
Well, I know we are pretty much at time, but it's just been a pleasure to talk to you about Bitter Honey and learn a little bit more about your other books for those who might not be as familiar. But as people are leaning into Bitter Honey, what are one or two things that you want readers to take away from the story?
I think it's just, that's one about getting derailed, but also just reading it with just an open mind and understanding, because all my books really are about grace, right? Is how much grace are you willing to give Black women, right? Because we don't tend to get as much grace in society. And I show that clearly in all these books where maybe a Black woman makes a mistake, but she still gets judged harsher than the person that was involved with the mistake as well, And so the book is really about grace. And also saying, if we give people grace, then are we giving them capacity to, if I know better, then I do better, because people need to be able to grow, right? People need to be able to self-actualize. And if we say one strike you're out, right, then all the talent or all the amazing things that person could be gets cancelled. So that's one thing. But also just it's just a really fun read. So just go in and enjoy it. You're gonna have fun. I mean, there are so many different scenes. There are many different characters that are memorable. And then there is the neighbor, Mr. Tobian, that's like the grumpy, with his little skinks cats, the naked cats. He has one of the, judging people. There's so many. I mean, even like Sebastian, who's a great character. Uncle Leaf, which you didn't want to talk about, that's a wonderful character as well. So just enjoy the book, And once you enjoy it, then recommend it to people.
Absolutely. And we didn't touch on everything because we'd be here all night. And because the whole point is for you, I always say you give you like a little appetizer. Yes. And then you go and dive in for the full meal. So thank you, Lars.
Thank you both so much. If you have not already purchased your copy of Bitter Honey, if you're online, you can do so by clicking on that link right below our authors. And if you're in person, get a copy for yourself, get a copy for your mom, get a copy for your aunties. They're all up at the front with a bio. And I'm going to ask Lola that you just stay right where you are. Okay. Folks can come get their book signed, and I will bring you a pen. But thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight. Thank you so much, Marcie, for being an incredible conversation partner. Thank you again, Lola, for celebrating your book at Charis.
Yeah, thank you so much.